Welcome to School Life Unpacked, the podcast for anyone navigating the complexities of their child's education. Join me, Natasha Curtis-Ego, and a lineup of insightful guests as we explore the challenges, joys, and surprises of school life, offering support and tips to help us feel more confident and connected. Today I have a wonderful guest, and I will give her a moment to introduce herself, if you would, please.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Lily. I am a primary school teacher. I'm currently teaching Year 3 at St Helens Catholic Primary School.
How long have you been a teacher for?
I've been a teacher now for 8 years.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, so.
Today we are here to discuss phonics, which I think is a really interesting topic because it's something we're sort of a little bit introduced to when your child is at nursery, if your nursery does that, but you kind of get a crash course in reception. If you could kindly tell us a little bit about phonics and its importance and what it is.
It's a method of teaching reading and writing by focusing on the relationship between sounds, which we call phonics, and the letters or group of letters, the graphemes that represent them. It's so important. In the early years, we lay the foundation for future learning by focusing on those core foundational skills, phonics, vocabulary, comprehension. These early experiences, they really shape a child's attitude towards reading and writing, and it has a direct impact on their confidence, engagement in their education throughout their learning journey.
Which is wonderful because the importance of reading is fundamental. And everybody who I've spoken to, when I say, what is your tip for parents that read? Read.
Yeah.
Read a bit more.
Yeah.
And when you're tired of reading, read a little bit more. Because
Literally.
So that's what I'm hoping we're going to explain to parents why it's so important and why it's taught in the way it is and how it's broken down. If you could give us a wonderful little reason of why in reception we begin with phonics and how they start and how we can do a bit of that at home as well to encourage that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in reception we start, and in a way we start way before this in nursery.
Okay.
We start by singing songs, the nursery rhymes, telling stories, encouraging children to join in. It's all about hearing those sounds initially before we start to introduce the more formal sounds. But then, we gently introduce a single sound every day and build on those sounds daily. So, for example, on day 1, we might introduce the sound S, and then the next day you would revise S, and then you would add another. So, gently we build on, our previous learning, and we just repeat, going over it again and again and again until, they've got it and it's like solid in their minds. Yeah, so the more regular exposure that they have to these sounds and the regular practice, they become, more fluent and become better at recognising and, pronouncing the sounds, and then they can initially start to blend sounds together to form words. So it's really important in the early years that we encourage reading, exploring with sounds, and it's magical really for them when they start to realise, that words kind of make sense and the world around them starts to make sense. I really love it. I really enjoy it, especially in the early years, because you can just kind of see this whole world come to life for them.
With the phonic system, something that I learned was there's different phonic systems.
Yes.
So each school chooses, do they get to choose their phonic system?
Yeah.
The one you use is Jolly Phonics.
Jolly Phonics, yes.
Okay, so for those of you who are listening, Jolly Phonics uses a lot of songs, doesn't it?
Yes.
To kind of be cheeky, and as you did, you know what the song is first?
Yes. Oh, hang on, now you're...
hang on.
I've got
in
my heart. Ants on my arm, ants on my arm, ants on my arm, they're causing me alarm.
So do you find with the Jolly Phonics system, they really pick up?
They do. They
do?
really do, and they love it. They absolutely love it. It's going to bug me now because I definitely know.
Oh, don't worry. If you remember later on, we can come back to that. Don't worry.
It's gonna come to me. But yeah, I think they really do, and they really get into it as well. It's really fun. It's really engaging. There's lots of pictures and stories that go with the sounds of the song as well. So it is really fun for them. Yeah, and they love it. They all absolutely love the singing, and it just sticks in your head, doesn't it?
Yes, as parents, it sticks in your head.
Yes.
But it's so wonderful to see, like you said, the world opening up for your child as they start to recognize the letters more and attach a sound to that letter to be able to blend, which is putting all the words together. How would you encourage your classroom to be a world where they can be curious about the more sounds? How does that work?
Yeah, well, we do this in so many ways. Of course, encouraging reading, reading, more reading, like you said earlier, having a range of high quality texts, like picture books. We always have a reading corner where we have picture books. We've got the classics, of course, that we all know and love. But then, of course, those decodable books that children can pick up and they're in line with their phonic knowledge and that they can start to read themselves, which is lovely. We have our sounds on the wall with, the alphabet as well as the digraphs and trigraphs. So the digraph is 2 letters that make one sound.
For example,
sh, S and H together would make the sound sh. A and I together would make the sound A. Yeah, and there's lots of those as well. And also trigraphs. So trigraphs are 3 letters that make one sound. So for example, I-G-H, put them together, they make the sound I. So we have those readily available for the children to access. And we, of course, encourage loads of curiosity. We've got flashcards. Children love to emanate their teachers and their role models and who they see. So, of course, during our phonics sessions, we would use flashcards and resources and all the things to kind of get them engaged. And then they also have a set themselves. So that when they're able to, they're in provision or learning through play, they are able to go off and, do this themselves. And you often find the children doing phonics, and they've got their whiteboards and one of them's being the teacher, and they've got the flashcards and things like tricky words, which are the sight words that you can't sound out. Okay. So they're the words that we need to just know by sight. For example, we couldn't sound
yeah.
So so it's just about making that environment fun, engaging and accessible, really. But most of all, we have to make our environment a safe space where they feel comfortable and ready to learn, and then just being openly encouraged to be curious, getting them to share their ideas with their peers, and just lots of praise and just a really fun place.
It sounds like a place all of us would like to be.
Oh, it really is. It really is.
So as parents, when it comes to phonics, how do you get parents to get involved with phonics, especially for parents who have not learnt in that way? Because perhaps phonics, although it appears to be new, I know isn't as new, but it wasn't formalised until much later. For parents who didn't learn phonetically or in the phonics system, how would you encourage them to support their children? Because I found that for me, I was learning phonics with my children.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they were teaching me the songs and the sounds and explaining what a digraph and a trigraph were.
Yeah.
So how do you get the parents on board to this sort of way of teaching to read?
Well, I think St Helens is really good at that, engaging the parents, getting them in very early, so when children start their school career in September in reception, we get the children, the parents in straight away for a kind of workshop on phonics, what it is, how it works, how we sound out, and how we encourage children to learn the 42 sounds of our language.
So with phonics, you're looking at the pure sound, aren't you?
Yes.
Because I remember thinking, I don't quite understand, the sound is slightly different it's like the pure sound. Could you explain what a pure sound is versus, I guess, a non-pure sound?
So it would be like an unvoiced sound. For example, we might have learned that the letter N, we might pronounce it N.
Yeah.
Okay, but we do the unvoiced, so it's because, for example, in the word sun, if we was to say n, the blended together would be sunna.
I see.
So we do the unvoiced, so that would be sun.
Oh, I understand now.
And I think actually that's quite tricky for parents who didn't learn in this way.
Yeah.
So we have to do a lot of, encouraging the unvoiced, so like instead of m, and p instead of p. Just because, of course, when you blend those sounds together, it doesn't quite make, the right word. Yeah. So, it's lots of teaching. It's teaching parents as well. We send resources home. We give them access to learning at home. Yeah, and just kind of keep in communication all the time with, developments, how they're getting on, how they're progressing. Yeah, and just lots of educating the children and the parents together. It's a real learning journey for the whole family.
Definitely, I agree with that. That is a very, very true statement. Would you find that when you introduce phonics to reception, they grab onto it and run? And how easy do they find learning the phonics? Or is it something that takes time, or is it just individuals?
It's totally individualised. Okay. All children are so different, aren't they? Some children just run with it straight away. They're on it. They've got it. They can hear the sounds. They start blending them together. And then, we're transferring those skills, and they're looking at letter formation, and they are writing them and putting them together, whereas some others it just takes a long time. Some children struggle to orally hear those sounds or orally blend, so we would take it right back to orally blending, where I would say, okay, we're going to sit down, so it's just lots of getting them to actually hear those sounds. So it's totally individualized. Some run with it, some might take a little bit longer and then they get there, but I would say everyone does kind of eventually get there, but it just depends on the child. So, and again, I think it's about having the child at the center of everything you do, and knowing that no two children are the same. It might take a little bit longer, but you'll get there in the end. So just keep going with it.
In year 1, you have the phonic assessment. Yes. How does that work?
The phonics screening test.
Oh, the phonics screening test. Sorry.
Yes. So the phonics screening test in year 1, it will just test their ability to recognise and read all the sounds that we learn. So the 42 letter sounds. So that would be the single sounds, the digraphs, the trigraphs, as well as some alternative pronunciation. So the English language is tricky, really. So we have some alternative pronunciation. So for example, the letter G can also be a soft G. So it can also sometimes say J. And, we could have a soft C. So instead of, like in the word ace, it would be pronounced as a S. Tests all of that knowledge. It also gets them to read, decode real words as well as alien words. Okay. So these are words, so they're like nonsense words, basically, that are put together, again, to just see how their decoding skills are. Basically, can they recognise those sounds, decode them? So we call that segmenting, and then blend them and put them together. So it's not really for our little year ones.
It sounds a lot,
but it's very fun, and it's delivered in a really fun way. And of course, there's loads of praise, and we really make it fun and exciting for them. They feel very grown up. We really give them lots of praise. And like I say, the nonsense words, they're like alien words. So they've got lots of little aliens that kind of go with them. So, they really take that on board and really enjoy that. We have loads of games that we play as well to make that fun thing. So they don't feel like, they don't know they're being tested as such. They're just showing off their phonic knowledge, which they love to do.
With children who don't grasp phonics, do you find that some of them learn to sight read rather than embrace the phonics, or do you find that they eventually get the phonics system?
That's a tricky one, really. There are phonics programs that are developed for older learners as well. The content is older, which is more appropriate for them, especially if they haven't kind of grasped it. Of course, there are sight words as well that we could introduce, but really we like them to be able to, those skills of decoding, because they're so vital for writing and spelling as well. So it's very important. Of course, again, with all children being individualized, I think sometimes you do need to just tailor your teaching, make it right for them, but we would always hold phonics first. We would always teach phonics first, if that makes sense.
Okay, so phonics is at the forefront, and then
absolutely.
I suppose if you're going to assess them, they need to or screen them, they need to know the phonics sounds to be able to go through that test.
Yeah.
So sight reading has its place, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. And like I say, we've got the range of tricky words, and the non-decodable words they learn, and that again helps with their fluency when they're reading. So yes, sight words absolutely do have their place. Yeah, 100%. It's just the actual decoding skills, of breaking the words down is so important for them. I think even as adults, I say this to my children all the time, if I don't know a word, I sound it out, sound it out, go back to it, sound it out like that. That's okay. Especially like with the multisyllabic words as well, so it is really important. It's an important skill.
Once we've got our phonics learnt, we now move up to year 1. What comes next after phonics? Because you said it helps, I know it helps feed into spelling. It helps, although what happens with the words that aren't phonetically spelled?
Yes.
How do we grasp that?
We learn them through spelling rules. Yeah, and in our English language, there are many.
Yes. It is really interesting when you have your year 1 write out and that everything is phonic based. And you're like, oh, you spelled that wrong. And they're like, oh no, we spell it with phonics, mummy. Yeah,
and then of course you progress to year 2 and year 3 up the school, and then we start to say no. Well, now we need to learn the spelling rule and the alternative pronunciations, and then we really get into, I guess, the linguistics and why we spell words the way we do, and looking at making those links between spelling rules and what we know. So we start looking a lot more at grammar in year 2, and then progressing into year 3, it's learning to use a dictionary and now this is how I spell this word, but why do I spell this word? Let's break it down. So actually we still use a lot of the phonics skills by breaking it down, looking at the phonemes in each word and kind of putting them together in word banks or groups of words. We start looking at prefixes. So
what is a prefix?
A prefix is a group of words that go at the beginning of the word to change its meaning. So for example, like un or dis or re, for example, and a suffix are a group of words that go at the end of a word, again, to change meaning, like less or able or something like that. So, or vision, we've been doing in class this week. So it is quite complex.
But it sounds like you break it down into these beautiful bite sizes, so our children are building on their knowledge.
And it's about St Helens, especially, it's about that spiral curriculum. So linking back all the time to what we've learned. We was just talking about in class the other day why we do phonics in reception, because it lays that foundation for all your future learning. So the phonics, although we don't do phonics sessions per se, the phonics still underpins what we do, and it's still all about breaking those words and segmenting words, blending them together, and just really understanding. So if they've got a really good understanding in reception in year 1, hopefully we've set them on the right path for success as they progress through the school.
We're in year 1. So you were talking about grammar, so that's year 2. In year 1, we're still not worried about grammar. We build up, is that correct? You build up to grammar in year 2.
Yeah.
So how do you introduce the grammar?
Yeah.
May I ask? I'm so nosy.
Yeah, we would gradually introduce as is right for them, and once they've kind of got all their knowledge and their basis and they're ready, especially when we are writing longer sentences, more complex sentences, you start to teach the grammar and just gently feed that in and just kind of make it make sense for them. We don't want to overwhelm them too much, but going at a nice slow steady pace. Again, Jolly Phonics is really good, so they have specific grammar content activities which they continue through towards the end of year 1 and the beginning of year 2. So that gives them like a good solid foundation.
So how often are phonics introduced? You mentioned earlier that you do a sound a day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So a sound a day. So we would do phonics every day, and it's a sound a day. So we would introduce a new sound every day, and then we would also revise. So that's really important. So for example, we would do a quick review, like in a phonics session, we would do a quick review of the learned letter sounds. So we use actions, we do the flashcards, we do the songs, things like that to jog their memory. We would then introduce a new sound. So we would verbally say the new sound, getting them to repeat after me, and then together, and then we would introduce the letter sound. and the corresponding action story, the visual aids like the flashcards. Then we would introduce letter formation and then blending. So like we said earlier, breaking down those words, breaking down the sounds, so segmenting, and then blending them together. And again, it'd all be about using previously learnt sounds as well as the new sounds. Yeah, so it really is, like stepping stones, I guess, and just really just building gradually every day on what they've learned. And I think the more practice, it just helps develop their fluency, their understanding, their confidence, and then just giving them the confidence to be able to do that themselves as well. So then we would apply that to like a text, for example. Then we might read a text with some of the new sounds and our previously learnt sounds, so that they can, they're able to like apply their knowledge. And then we would, introduce writing words and simple sentences. Yeah, so it's a very fun lesson. They're quite fast paced, which is good to keep their engagement, but then lots of consolidation. So even though we would just do a phonics session, we would also then teachers would pick up those who maybe need a bit of extra support. Your teaching assistants would also take a group and they might play games with them that are targeting a particular sound or a group of sounds. We would do like a guided reading session where we would all have the same book, everyone's reading, but the teacher's able to go around here, give feedback, maybe correct pronunciation, things like that. So yeah, it's all about constant assessment as well. Not necessarily formal, but just checking in, how they're getting on, what do they recognise, where do they need help, where are the gaps, and where can we plug these as well.
So for parents at home, what kind of games would you encourage them to play, perhaps, to make phonics more fun and reading more fun? Are there any that you would say, they're fun and they could be applied at home as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's loads in school we have like an interactive whiteboard, so there's lots of really fun, great targeted phonics games that we would use. We use like phonicsplay.co.uk. They're brilliant for really fun, engaging games that the children love. And of course, they're learning and they're recapping everything they know. The Jolly Phonics is brilliant as well. It comes with like a website and a login, and it's really fantastic. But there's lots of games out there like Orchard Toys. Their games are lovely, really, really nice. But it's also things like, you can do phonics anywhere and everywhere. So, accessing your local library. It's things like having, your foam letters in the bath.
Yeah.
And just encouraging that all the time, because, letters and sounds, they're all around us. So it's when you're out and about, it's noticing signs, it's in the supermarket, encouraging sounding out and, reading things. So it's everywhere and anywhere, and it can be as fun and engaging as you make it, really. Even things like, there's so many great TV shows, Alphabet Blocks, and, so that there's just so many amazing resources that you can access. And I think just as parents, you just got to make it fun. If they think that you like it and, and it's fun, then, I think they'll get on board with it.
I agree with you. I think it is about making reading fun and lifelong. I remember speaking to somebody and they said, if your child sees you reading, whether it's a newspaper or anything, comic book, they then can see that you enjoy it just as much as they have to. And it's not a task, it's a joy. It's something that can be fun for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is another thing we like to encourage, is that reading for pleasure, because, it is fun. It is a joy. It does just unlock a whole new world. It develops their imagination. It's fantastic. I'd say one other thing that I like to encourage parents to do is put subtitles on the telly, because the children then are seeing the sounds. They are literally seeing the graphemes as they are being spoken, and they put two and two together, and it just all starts to make sense. So I would definitely always say subtitles on.
Okay. Handy little tip for people, because I think we do allow our children to watch, television, and they have their iPads or whatever screens. I know we limit their time on them, but whilst they're on, why not make it subconsciously educational?
Absolutely. Let's get that education in anywhere and everywhere we can.
Because I think learning is fun.
It is.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed learning about the phonics side. I know it's been very phonic heavy, and there are other styles of learning to read, but in our system, at the moment, phonics are at the forefront. And it's nice for parents to know what they are, how they work, and how we can support them at home, especially for those parents like myself who didn't learn with the phonics system. To be fair, I don't actually remember how I learned to read, but I'm assuming it's from like the whole word system where we learnt the words and had to just learn them and commit them to memory.
I think I learned in the same way like you. I don't really remember it either, but I always say to parents, don't worry, I trained to do this. I went to university to train. I had to learn this all myself as well. So, don't worry, just go with it. The children, like you say, they come home and they'll teach you, and we will give you as much support as we can and training in a sense. But yeah, I think it is a good system. I personally love teaching phonics, and I just love the joy that it brings. Yeah, for all the kids, I've got some really great memories of teaching phonics.
Would you like to share anything fun with us?
I mean, we always try and make it every day fun. I mean, I've got like a standout moment where with phonics. So my first school, working in reception, so working with a little girl, and she really struggled. So she was great in phonics sessions, but then she struggled with the working memory. So we'd have a breakthrough lesson, and then the next day we'd come back and we'd have to start all over again. But so after so many interventions with myself, extra reading, small groups, you're playing the games, you're sending things home, you're engaging the parents. It was a lot of work, and it takes a long time. But one day she came to me and she wanted to play, but I just needed to support a child just with a bit of mind first aid. And she picked up a book and she sat down and she just started reading. And I was like, I got my TA and I said, listen. And we just listened to her read independently on her own. And I just remember welling up and thinking, we did that. I taught her how to learn. I taught her how to read, and it was just magical. So proud of herself. And she didn't even, it was just like no fuss. She just knew what she was doing. It was just really lovely. Yeah, and fast forward, we are no longer there, but I did keep in touch with her family. She's just taken her Year 6 SATs, and she passed her reading SATs, which is amazing. So yeah, really proud, and that's a real moment. My career, I thought, I love this, and this is a really great thing. Like, there's no greater gift to give to a child than to be able to read. So yeah. Really nice.
Oh, what a wonderful way to end our episode. Please, Lily, come back another time and maybe we can talk about maths or something else teacher related. But thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode. And we truly appreciate you listening. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, subscribe, and follow to stay updated on future episodes. We look forward to seeing you next week.